Guys, keep the mic open. Them of Jamaica. Thank you. Welcome to the low-cost housing design competition. As we begin, we do in prayer, and we ask Mr. Unique Watson, the Chief Technical Director in the Ministry of Economic, I beg your pardon, in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. Mr. Watson.
Let us bow our heads for prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for this beautiful island that you have blessed us with. A land with bountiful, sustainable resources. People who are resilient, dedicated, and wonderful. Lord, I'm asking for you to continue to bless our leaders as they continue to deliver to us. Give them vision and strength, perseverance in executing their duties. Lord, continue to bless our public servants and our private sector counterparts. These times have been rough, but we have all persevered and we're looking towards the end. Dear Lord, as we go through the motions of launching this competition, I'm asking for you to inspire the participants, the applicants, that the units that will be designed will be in your honor, will be the type of units that you want for Jamaica and Jamaicans. Dear Lord, continue to protect us, continue to bless us, and continue to bless Jamaica land we love. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Those in the media center, you may be seated. Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, the Honorable Desmond McKenzie, Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, the Honorable Favour Williams, the Minister of Education, Youth and Information, the Honorable Pernell Charles Jr., the Minister of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change, Mr. Michael Phillips, the Opposition Spokesman on Housing, who joins us virtually, Mrs. Audrey Sewell, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, as well as here at the Office of the Prime Minister. You heard from Mr. Unique Watson, the Chief Technical Director at MEGJC, Mr. Lenworth Kelly, the President of the Incorporated Master Builders Association, other mayors who are present on a virtual platform, Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning for the launch of the low-cost housing design competition. The new social housing program was really implemented in July 2019. It's the brainchild of Prime Minister the Most Honorable Andrew Holness. But to give you an overview of the program, let me ask the Permanent Secretary in two ministries at the MEGJC and, of course, here at OPM, Mrs. Audrey Sewell, to give us that overview.
Thank you, Moderator, Ms. Naomi Francis, Press Secretary, Office of the Prime Minister. The Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister. Honorable Desmond McKenzie, Minister of Local Government and Rural Development. Honorable Pernell Charles Jr., Minister of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change. Honorable Fable Williams, Minister of Education, Youth and Information. Senator the Honorable Aubin Hill, Minister without portfolio, Minister of Economic Growth and Job Creation. Other members of the Cabinet and the Attorney General who have joined us virtually. Ministers of State, Mr. Michael Phillips, Member of Parliament and Opposition Spokesperson on Housing, Transport and Works. He too has joined us virtually. Permanent Secretaries who have also joined us virtually. Mayors who have joined us virtually as well. Mr. Lenworth Kelly here with us, President, Incorporated Master Builders Association of Jamaica. Mr. Yannick Watson, Chief Technical Director, MEGJC. Thank you for the invocation. Design Competition Committee members, specially invited guests, representatives of the media, all who have joined us virtually. Good morning and welcome. Mahatma Gandhi is quoted as saying, "The true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable members." Having had the responsibility of managing the housing portfolio for a number of years, I have certainly seen firsthand the substandard conditions under which some of our most vulnerable live. It is therefore not surprising that this is an area that our Prime Minister sought to address very early in his tenure through the implementation of a social housing program under the Housing Opportunity Production and Employment Program, HOPE, in July 2019. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here striving to ensure every member of our population has their basic needs met, and that includes a suitable roof over their heads. We must therefore utilize what we are allocated as efficiently as we can to maximize the number of persons that we assist, and that is where this competition comes in. This is the avenue through which we will harness the creative capital which we are blessed in abundance in our country to identify our low-cost housing designs so that we can reduce the cost of the houses that we are building under the housing component of the HOPE program. Of course, let me hasten to say that while we are looking at reducing cost, this will not be at the expense of quality. And so the units to be designed must adhere to all our health, safety, climate resilience, and environmental standards. As the brainchild of the Prime Minister, HOPE was launched with two main initiatives initially, namely the housing and employment components. The housing component is implemented under the Housing Act and is one where each member of Parliament is allotted 5 single units, whether 1, 2, or 3 bedrooms annually. Also, the relocation of vulnerable communities where persons whose lives are in imminent danger are to be given priority attention. And thirdly, the upgrading of tenements, popularly called big yards, 1 such project per constituency per year. Given the high demand, there is need to optimize our limited financial resources to get to the best value at the least cost. And it is against this background that at the inception of the program, the Prime Minister gave the directive for the low-cost housing design competition to be launched. As a result, a committee chaired by Mrs. Orthreen Scarlett, Senior Director, Housing Administration, was appointed to develop the guidelines and rules for the competition. Other members of the committee include Mr. Yannick Watson, MEGJC, Honorable Danville Walker, MEGJC, Mr. Roger Blake, MEGJC, HUREC, Ms. Vanessa Williams, MEGJC, Ms. Nakia McMorris, Housing Agency of Jamaica, and Mr. Brian Saunders, National Housing Trust. The work of the committee was somewhat delayed because of the onset of COVID. However, thankfully, we are here today and we are back on track. Time will not permit me to go into too much detail at this point, but let me provide a brief overview of the competition. It will be open to all Jamaicans, whether they live here or overseas. Of course, those who are residing overseas will have to prove that they are Jamaicans. We are especially targeting engineers, architects, builders, and students from the built environment, but we are not limiting the competition to those categories. So once you feel that you can meet the requirement, we encourage you to enter. Submissions may be done individually or in teams with a maximum of 5 persons. Competitors are encouraged to conceive new and original design concepts. We are not limiting you. And of course, these designs must be for units that are low cost and sustainable. We do not want to be in a situation where, having provided a unit, we are in short order called upon to provide further assistance because the units are falling apart. Designs should accommodate persons who are disabled, should demonstrate climate resilience, and of course be adaptable to the various terrains to be found island-wide. Entries may be accepted in 4 categories: 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units and multifamily unit. It is well known that reward sweetens labor, and so we will offer prizes of $1 million, $500,000, and $250,000 respectively to the first, second, and third place winners in each of the 4 categories. Once an educator, always an educator. And so, although I'm no longer in the classroom, I am happy to announce that as a special incentive to our students, the most outstanding 2 students in each category will receive honorary mention and a prize of $50,000. A certificate of participation will be given to each entrant. The entries will be judged by an august panel drawn from the Jamaica Institute of Architects, the Jamaica Institute of Engineers, the Jamaica Institute of Quantity Surveyors, the Caribbean School of Architecture, the Incorporated Master Builders Association of Jamaica, the National Environment and Planning Agency, the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, and of course, the Ministries of Economic Growth and Job Creation, and Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment, and Climate Change. The designs will be judged based on cost, use of material, technical soundness, functionality, climate resilience, innovation, and creativity. As I said earlier, I will be brief. And so let me just point out that a comprehensive document that sets out all the details of the competition, such as the application process, submission requirements, rules, and conditions, will be available on MEGJC's website at megjc.gov.jm and OPM at opm.gov.jm, along with the registration and application forms. I must say that I am quite excited about this competition. We started working so long on it. And I look forward to seeing the originality and creativity of our building professionals in the designs that will be submitted. I look forward to it. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Audrey Sewell, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, and here also at the Office of the Prime Minister. Certainly ensuring that she gets across the fact that the designs must be original and creative, must be low cost and sustainable, and of course, best value at least cost. And so without further ado then, let me invite Mr. Lenworth Kelly, the President of the Incorporated Master Builders Association, one of the partners here, to endorse the program.
Good morning, everyone. Honorable Prime Minister Andrew Holness, Minister Desmond McKenzie, Minister Favour Williams, and Minister Pernell Charles Jr., Permanent Secretary Sewell, and Chief Technical Director Yannick Watson. The Incorporated Master Builders Association of Jamaica commends the Prime Minister, the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, the new social housing program, and the Hope Agency on the promotion of this design competition, which seeks to develop affordable or what we would call low-cost housing solutions. The IMAJ is a construction industry organization of contractors, building contractors, civil engineering contractors, service providers, suppliers, and other industry partners. Collectively, our members have built over 95% of Jamaica's planned housing stock. Our charge to the ministry and to you, Mr. Prime Minister, is to not let this become a shelf item, but seek to provide, particularly to our students, the necessary guidance and tools which are necessary for us to come up with practical designs. A lot of times our designs come up, but they are not practical for implementation. And it is our hope at the IMAJ that these can be added to the current implementation mix of housing stock being developed. A charge to the design team. The charge is yours to create something decent and affordable. I encourage you to think outside the box. Seek to employ locally produced material as far as possible. Challenge yourselves to aim at developing methods and creative use of materials, including composites in your designs, and designs that can actually be built by unskilled workers. A house is the single largest investment most of us will ever make. And many of us are despondent because we can't afford what is available. So we rent, we catch, we squat. The housing stats for the low-income category has been much less than desired. Shelter is among humanity's greatest needs, and housing is the largest consistent employer of construction labor in this country. The National Housing Policy of 2019 highlights a need for approximately 15,000 new housing units annually up to 2030. And it also proposes some methods by which these targets can be realized. Now, affordability, however, is central there because there is the demand, but affordability is central to the gap that exists between the need and the supply of that demand. Research by UTEC and Salises in 2009 indicated a mean affordability of about $3 million, which at the time could just give up a basic service lot. And that does not obtain in our urban centers. More current housing demand surveys conducted by the NHT, and by current we mean 2014 to 2017, would indicate to us that 38% of our population can't afford anything over $6 million. Now, 20% of that can't afford anything over $5 million. And that was then. It would be interesting to see what the numbers are now. So we are saying 40% of the demand out there is for the range that this program seeks to target. And so this program must be encouraged, it must be supported, and we must give our everything behind it. There's this thing called housing stress. It's where the relatively high cost of our housing, whether it's rent or the mortgage or whatever it is, our income levels don't allow us to cover the full range of other goods and services we need to live. And so we deem that housing stress. And it is really if your income, and it's largely for those whose income fall in the bottom 40% of income distribution. So we want to challenge everyone, whether you are in the design, whether you are providing advice, whether you are on the agency side, whether you're a student or a professional, challenge yourselves to seek housing solutions to satisfy this most basic of human needs. We must see housing as an investment in our people. Too many Jamaicans live below the poverty line, and housing is a means for them to rise above that. Let us work to use even housing to make Jamaica the place to live and raise families. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kelly. Excellent synopsis there, and of course endorsing and challenging those who will participate to create very, very affordable low-cost housing. Our next speaker to bring us greetings this morning, a young minister. He has taken on to his portfolio very well, and he comes to speak as the Minister of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment, and Climate Change. Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Pernell Charles Jr.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Let me, of course, acknowledge our Prime Minister, Ministers Mackenzie, Williams, Hill, any other colleagues that are watching online, Permanent Secretary Sewell, Mr. Kelly, CTD, friends from the media, everyone, good morning. You know, I listened a while ago, and if housing is an investment in our people, this competition is a reflection of the partnership that is needed for us to achieve our goals for our people. I listened also to Permanent Secretary, and what comes to my mind is that any delay is for a purpose, because there's never been a more important time for us to launch this competition than now. And so I don't see it as a delay, I see it as God's timing. Given all that we have gone through as a country, as a global society, the need for housing has really been exposed and revealed as critical. When we are telling people to stay home, it compels us to really think about the structure of that home and the several issues connected to that. Security, vulnerability, how our children that are growing up in that home and what they're exposed to. So this competition is critical. And I want to use the opportunity to simply congratulate all members of the team that have worked towards this being a realization. It really reflects the partnership that is needed in government, the whole of society approach, and it is one element of several things that we intend to do together at the Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change, with all of the stakeholders, with the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, with your ministry, Minister Mackenzie, and all of government, to make sure that we are advancing towards a goal of safe, legal, and affordable housing solutions for all Jamaicans. And when we say affordable, we want to make sure that the definition of affordability is correlated to what our people can actually access. That is why this competition is critical. It encourages, it achieves the goal that our Prime Minister desires. When I was asked by the Prime Minister to serve in this capacity, one of the first things he indicated is that we need a completely different approach to developing the framework that is required for us to achieve housing solutions. And we intend to be working on several activities, completing the surveys that are being done now as it relates to squatter settlements, and making sure that we encourage those who participate in this competition and others to think about renewable energy, think about the type of water conservation techniques you use, think about the shower taps that you introduce into your design, think about recyclable material, think about how you will construct, because ultimately low-cost housing has to be resilient housing. It has to be sustainable housing. These are the citizens in our country that are most vulnerable. And Minister Hill, you know, they're the ones that are most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, the floods, the droughts, and other things. So this is critical. Again, I want to close by just saying thank you to our Prime Minister. It is his vision. It is from his mind and desire to see a better Jamaica that he has encouraged us all to focus on these issues. I want to congratulate Permanent Secretary Sewell and the team from McJC and all who have worked so hard on this housing competition as we look forward to several elements that will achieve the goals for our country. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Minister Charles, the Minister of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change, underscoring the fact that the designs really must include the fact that we have to build resilient and sustainable housing. May I pause to acknowledge the presence of the Honourable Aubin Hill, Senator the Honourable Aubin Hill, the Minister without Portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. And I also see here Colonel Martin Rickman, the head of the HOPE program. Now, ladies and gentlemen, he's no stranger at all. Does a lot of work in terms of local government, very passionate, in fact, about local government and rural development. Please welcome, with remarks, the Honourable Desmond Mackenzie.
Thank you, Naomi. Most Honourable Prime Minister, colleague cabinet ministers present and those who are joining online. Member of Parliament Michael Phillips, opposition spokesperson on housing. Ladies and gentlemen, pleasant good morning. Today is a very monumental day for housing in Jamaica. Again, this government made a commitment to bring affordable housing to the people of Jamaica. What we are here this morning to launch is a competition that will assist in the process of providing affordable housing for Jamaicans. The Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development is very proud to be a part of this launch. It is critical because within the portfolio responsibility of the Ministry of Local Government, we play a critical role in providing housing solutions for a certain level of the Jamaican society. We have been doing that since 2016, and we will continue to do so. This launch this morning will provide an opportunity for us to double the number of houses that we have constructed so far. As the representative from the professional association spoke to the issue of affordable housing, but also quality housing solutions. This is what this government is about. This is what the concept is all about. And I would urge Jamaicans to buy in, those who can write the projects. I will encourage you to do so, because you will be a part of history. Housing in areas such as the constituency that I represent and other rural parts of Jamaica is critical to the foundation of our country. And if as a nation we are to survive and to grow, then we must make housing affordable for every single Jamaican who wants a roof over their heads. My endorsement this morning is to commend the Most Honorable Prime Minister on this concept and to give the full support of the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development to a worthwhile venture that will once and for all start to really give answers, not lip service, to the question of affordable housing in Jamaica. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister Desmond McKenzie. He is the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development. And so the low-cost housing program really is, as I said earlier, and as the other speakers alluded to, is the brainchild of Prime Minister the Most Honourable Andrew Holness. It's part of the new social housing program that's implemented under the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. And just before the Prime Minister comes up to speak, we give you an overview of the program.
A preoccupation of the government. This commitment can be seen through the mandates of the National Housing Trust, the Housing Agency of Jamaica, and the Jamaica Mortgage Bank. The thrust to provide housing for all Jamaicans can also be seen through the work of the Ministry of Local Government, and now the National Social Housing Program. The National Social Housing Program is an extension of the Housing Opportunity Production and Employment Program, HOPE. It was developed in 2018 to improve the housing conditions of the country's poor and indigent.
The idea is to support the development of affordable housing solutions right across Jamaica.
The National Social Housing Program, NSHP, achieves its objectives in 3 ways.
The first is the provision of indigent housing. The benefits will be equitably distributed across 63 constituencies, with each constituency receiving 5 units per annum. Then there is the relocation of vulnerable communities. Persons whose lives are in imminent danger will be given priority attention. And then the third modality is the upgrading of tenements, or as we call them, big yards. One such project will be undertaken in each constituency where we can identify tenement yards.
The Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation has oversight for the NHSP, which is administered by a secretariat. Formed in 2019, the secretariat is headed by National Director Danville Walker. The NHSP delivered its first house in 2019. Since then, 29 houses have been completed at a cost of $250 million. They include 12 3-bedrooms, 11 2-bedrooms, 2 1-bedroom units, and 1 tenement yard, which impacted 3 families. With over 70 persons benefiting from the new social housing program, plans are in place to give even more Jamaicans similar access. 15 units are currently under construction and are on track to be completed by July.
The program is designed to address people who are in need, people who can't get houses going the regular method, but it is also designed to bring hope to communities that are in need of such interventions. So if we can make an impact on this kind of housing situation, then we would have started well down the road to address the issue of housing poverty.
And so the man who is very passionate about bringing affordable housing to Jamaicans, of course, being part of history, as Minister McKenzie said, but also transforming Jamaica one project at a time. Ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister of Jamaica, the Most Honourable Andrew Holness.
Thank you, Moderator Naomi, Press Secretary here at the Office of the Prime Minister. Let me acknowledge
my ministers who are here, the Minister of Local Government, the Honorable Desmond McKenzie, the Minister of Education. How are you, Minister? I see the smile on your face through the mask. Kids will be able to go back to school to get ready for their exams. That's a bit of good news. And then, of course, he was described as a young minister. I will have you know that I am just a few years older than he is. How are you, Minister Charles? Good to see you. And of course, Orbin, you're past that stage.
Which stage?
Minister Hill, good to see you. Permanent Secretary Sewell and your team, good to see all of you here. Mr. Kelly from the Master Builders Association. For those of you who are joining us virtually, welcome. Let me especially acknowledge Michael Phillips, the opposition spokesperson on housing. And all our viewers who are joining us via social media, whether you're in Jamaica or overseas, welcome. Now, let me start with a point made by Mr. Kelly, the charge that you gave to the government. Don't allow this competition to be won and then placed on a shelf somewhere in some ministry. I found it strange that that was an admonition, because the genesis of this project was indeed the success of the competition that was launched for the design of our parliament. And you will know, Mr. Kelly, that not only was the competition staged and it was well received and there was great participation, but that the design is now actually being brought into fruition. It will materialize because we have taken the design and it is now being, well, almost complete in terms of the detailed architectural, engineering, and other designs that are necessary. In fact, the Minister of Local Government will tell you that he got a special mandate to ensure that all the necessary approvals were given, and so that stage is complete. So the drawings are complete, the approvals are complete, there are some other stages to go through. So we are not going to take the public resource to develop a competition for academic purposes. In fact, what we're trying to do is to get the architectural, the planning community, the environmental community to take the vast knowledge that exists, both globally and of the local circumstance, and infuse it into practice to solve real-world problems. And that's what we're trying to do. So whatever solutions that come up, even those solutions that don't win, the government will benefit from having the knowledge that is there in research and academia applied to real-world problems, and then the government would take that application, put it through our bureaucracy, and then have it implemented. So let me assure you that though the charge is understood and well accepted, Mr. Kelly, it wasn't necessary. But the point is made. We have gone through too many such exercises and nothing comes of them. But that is not the intention of the government. We like to build partnerships, so it is important that we build partnership with the academic community, with the practitioners in the community, and bring them together with the policy intention of the government to deliver solutions to the people. Now, what is the policy problem that we face? I don't know if you see it when you drive around Jamaica. You see basically two Jamaicas living side by side. One Jamaica that is as a result of structured planning of communities, And then right beside it is another Jamaica, which is the product of unstructured settlement and development. And the two Jamaicas coexist. The problems of one sometimes spill over into the other. But the stark juxtaposition of structured development and unstructured development is also a juxtaposition of wealth sometimes, income sometimes, safety, access to amenities, versus poverty, no income, lack of security, and no amenities. But there is, of course, an interconnection. You have the garages here, and so the people who drive cars, who need their cars repaired, yeah, they just go across the road. Or, you know, the necessary household services and support, they're right next door. It is not a kind of development that is unique to Jamaica. It is just the nature of how urbanization happens. But so that's one challenge that we face. The other challenge that we face is that when you drive through our countryside, or if you go outside of Kingston, you don't have to go too far to just look down in a gully or a verge, and you will see a house precariously perched on a hillside that were there to be a heavy shower of rain, that house would probably be no more. But that house is also an environmental challenge because there would have to be sewage disposal, garbage disposal. Where would that end up? Ends up in our rivers and gullies. But, you know, I'm not in any way casting blame on the people who live in unstructured and unplanned communities. Far from it. The idea of addressing the problem frontally and speaking about it, even at the risk of being criticized, because within the social dynamic of the country, whenever you speak about issues of poverty, you are being criticized, or you face the risk of being criticized of being unsympathetic. And I think that the greatest trick that has been played on the poor of the country is that and I call it the politics of poverty, is that the people who represent them would never confront them with the issues of poverty. And I've always, you know, I've always been clear about this issue. I was born in poor circumstances. I was born in Spanish Town, 56 Cumberland Road, just down from the Grassyard Market, in a board house, a 2-bedroom board house. So I feel that I have the right to speak about poverty and the conditions of the poor. And what I would like to see happen is to transform the Jamaican landscape. No Jamaican should have to live in an unstructured and unplanned community. But there are vested interests in keeping structured and unplanned communities. What if we had the opportunity to say to a community, and I'm not going to call any community's name because you're going to hear all kinds of criticisms that we are stereotyping communities. But let's say there was a community across from a very critical national asset, such as a hospital. And that community was unplanned. And all the issues that have to do with unplanned communities affecting this national asset, let's say a hospital. And let's say the government decided that we really should, in a structured way, in an equitable and fair and just way for the national good. Say to the persons who are poor, who are living in this unstructured, unplanned community, let us form a partnership. Let us have a social contract about relocating you into better circumstances. Could that be done? I don't think it is beyond us to do it. But the real question is our politics of poverty ready for it? People will stand up in Parliament and say, yes, we agree, there should not be informal, unplanned, irregular settlement. But the next day, go somewhere else and say, no, 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 you should move. So the real question is not whether or not we can do it. We have the wherewithal to do it. The real issue is whether or not our politics is ready to do it. Until the politics is resolved, there are some other issues that need to be resolved. How can we build houses that are affordable for the persons who are living in unplanned and unstructured communities? So how can we build houses that have proper roads, proper sewage disposal, proper municipal waste disposal, electricity and water, and broadband internet, policeable, meaning that a police car can patrol and look and have sight of the area. There is a police station, a school, a hospital in close proximity, that you are on the formal tax roll, that you can pay your property tax and therefore demand garbage collection services. How can we guarantee this for all Jamaica? Well, the first obstacle would be the cost. What I've seen since taking over the portfolio of housing, which I've subsequently handed over to Minister Charles from a policy perspective, is that we have capacity in developers. We have lands that can be developed. The challenge is that there is very little effective demand for what we call affordable housing, meaning that people want the houses to buy, but there is no housing solution at the price point for which they can afford. Now, bear in mind, even that community that is unplanned, that is across from a hospital, they have very good structures there. If you were to do an audit of many of our unplanned informal settlements, they have invested in structures that you could just, if you were able to take them up and then place them in a structured community, they would have significant value. So it is not that there isn't any value, any income, any wealth in unplanned communities. It is by the very nature of the unplanned structures that are there that reduces the value. You cannot unlock and realize the values in those communities. So if we could enter the market for housing, become a true market maker for low-income, affordable housing, then we would begin to solve the housing problem. Can you imagine a situation if you're 25 now, and your girlfriend, she's pregnant now, baby is going to come on the way. You're a taxi driver, you're maybe a bus conductor, whatever your job. And the contemplation is now, where am I going to shelter them? Where am I going to put them to live? Well, I could go to my mother and say, listen, you see that spot right at the back of the yard there? I'm going to get some ply and some 2x4, and I'm going to build up a little one room there. And that's the situation right across Jamaica. Or I might see a piece of land there, and I don't know who own it, but nobody don't seem to claim it. So I go and drive a stake there. And one room start out as a boardroom, then 10 years down the road is a 2-story concrete structure. And you know the story. It's the Jamaican story. We know it. But how can we change that? By giving an option to that 25-year-old whose girlfriend is now pregnant and he has to be thinking about shelter. That, instead of doing that, the little stream of income that I would take to build up the house over time, NHD is there for mortgage, but there is also a solution that is in my price point. And that is the real crux to the problem. How to get the housing solution down to the price point where persons can afford it. Now, we started a program called the New Social Housing Program. It's designed to address housing for the absolute poor in the country. Indigent housing, housing in tenements, and housing for people who are at risk. There is no cost to the beneficiary for the housing other than to maintain it. The house is free. And we are doing it on a per constituency basis. And so far, we have 44 houses either completed or under construction, which works out to somewhere close to 70 other rooms being built. We have completed 1 tenement yard so far, where 3 families have gotten a 2-bedroom house to live in. Now, it might sound small, but the impact is large because these houses that we're changing, sometimes the household can go up to 10 or more. So it's impactful. And I have made a point of duty to go to the handing overs to see, as you would have seen from the video that was played earlier, to see who the beneficiaries are and so forth. Now, what we have learned from this exercise, it's social housing, but what we have learned is that terrain adds to cost. And Jamaica is not flat. And the flat lands are oftentimes agricultural lands. And so there's going to be a competition between land for housing and land for agriculture. And once you start to get into uneven and hilly terrain, the costs move astronomically. The other thing that we learn is that, Jamaica is not all sewered. So whenever you're going to be building, you have to contemplate the cost of sewage. So the disposal of sewage adds to the cost. Whereas if you had planned communities, then that would be just a fraction of the cost to consider, just to move from your first manhole to connect into the sewage. Now you have to build this, pits and reed beds and so forth, biodigesters even and so forth. And then water. Water, again, is a problem depending on where you go, because we have not run water mains all over the country. And for unplanned communities especially, by definition, water mains weren't run there, they weren't planned. So you have to put in water storage. Those things increase the cost of the social housing even more. So the basic block and steel unit, that's a standard cost, but the other costs increase the price significantly. Now, in unplanned communities, they don't consider sewage. They don't necessarily, so these other factors that you would have to put in place in a planned community aren't always considered in an unplanned community. So the question for us is, how can we design a housing solution that incorporates the environmental issues? So you would deal with your sewage, your waste disposal, water collection. You're not close to a river bank or precariously perched on an unstable slope, things like that. How do you build as well for aesthetics and for comfort? The housing solution experience that we have had in communities like Portmore and so forth, the general complaint, they are hot, they are solid concrete, and they absorb heat, they hold it and release it. So materials are important. What materials can we incorporate into the building of homes that will increase comfort, but at the same time reduce cost? Now, in Jamaica, a cost which we don't usually identify, but which is a significant cost in housing, is security. So, and when we say security, we're not talking cameras. We're talking every house has to have a boundary wall and a gate, and every house has to have a grill on the door and the windows. Those are costs. There are many communities around the world where there are no boundary walls, there are no gates. We have there's just a different respect for property and privacy of persons. But in our environment, security is a concern, and that adds to the cost of the house. So how do we use materials that are not just comfortable and materials that are environmentally friendly, but also, for many Jamaicans, the consideration is, can it stop a bullet? That's just the reality of construction and building. But we have to get away from that. So you can see why it's so important to increase security and safety generally in communities. That will also reduce the cost of construction. So the proposal for the design competition is to get our practitioners, our professionals, our academics who are in the field of urban planning, environment, architecture, materials, and so forth, to bring all of that knowledge in to creating a solution for low-income, affordable housing solutions. Right now, the average price for the unit we are constructing using traditional methods would be $78 million. Now, the 25-year-old bus conductor, carpenter, mason, $8 million is a lot. So we really need to bring that unit price down. Now, the unit price is important in the whole equation, but the real issue would be, could he access a mortgage and what would be his down payment? I think we have the access to mortgage issue relatively solved with the NHT as it is. So then the other part is, how do we get the starting price of the unit down so that the down payment itself is smaller? So that's what we're trying to solve. So I hope I've given you an overview as to what it is we're trying to do. We have committed to building 70,000 houses. I know that if we were to build 70,000 houses between $8 and $12 million, we wouldn't have hand to sell them. They would all be bought. But that wouldn't be equitable, and it wouldn't solve the problem that we have in the country. So we have actually specified that some of the houses would have to be for affordable price points. Some of the houses would go to young people. Some of the houses would go to persons in the public service. Because in everything that we do, our policy has to be fair and equitable. And that is how we're going to solve the inequality in the society, by ensuring that whatever policies the government is going to support, especially if we're going to put taxpayers' money into it, that it favors the poor. And that's what we want to do. So the idea is, one, we have to have structured relocation, but we also have to have a market where people who are making decisions about their shelter can say, I can formally participate in a structured market for housing instead of going to, nail up a tattoo somewhere and then create this atmosphere of chaka-chakaness in the country. We're going to change that. We're going to change that, and it can be done, and we're making steps to do it. Many critics, many people who just can't see the vision of what it is that we're going to do. But those critics only make me more energized and stronger to do what is necessary to move Jamaica from a country where there is disorder, unstructured development, and entrenched informality into a country of peace, prosperity, and well-being for all Jamaicans. So I want to officially launch the competition. I'm looking forward to seeing our young architects, our planners come on board. I'm very interested in seeing what the solutions that you bring to the table are, because we are going to take them and put them into practice. The transformation of Jamaica starts now. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prime Minister, for that very engaging discussion on Jamaica's development and certainly order within the housing sector. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of our program. We thank all those who are on our Zoom call, about 40 of our special guests on Zoom, as well as all those here at the Media Center here at the Office of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister has indicated that the program, the design competition, has now officially started. May I invite you then to visit megjc.gov.jm and opm.gov.jm for more information concerning the design competition. And good luck with your designs. Have a good morning, everybody.
Providing safe, adequate and affordable shelter has always been a preoccupation of the government. This commitment can be seen through the mandates of the National Housing Trust, the Housing Agency of Jamaica and the Jamaica Mortgage Bank. The thrust to provide housing for all Jamaicans can also be seen through the work of the Ministry of Local Government and now the National Social Housing Program. The National Social Housing Program is an extension of the Housing Opportunity Production and Employment Program, HOPE. It was developed in 2018 to improve the housing conditions of the country's poor and indigent.
The idea is to support the development of affordable housing solutions right across Jamaica.
The National Social Housing Program, NSHP, achieves its objectives in 3 ways.
The first is the provision of indigent housing. The benefits will be equitably distributed across 63 constituencies, with each constituency receiving 5 units per annum. Then there is the relocation of vulnerable communities. Persons whose lives are in imminent danger will be given priority attention. And then the third modality is the upgrading of tenements, or as we call them, big yards. One such project will be undertaken in each constituency where we can identify tenement yards.
The Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation has oversight for the NHSP, which is administered by a secretariat. Formed in 2019, the secretariat is headed by National Director Danville Walker. The NHSP delivered its first house in 2019. Since then, 29 houses have been completed at a cost of $250 million. They include 12 3-bedrooms, 11 2-bedrooms, 2 1-bedroom units, and 1 tenement yard, which impacted 3 families. With over 70 persons benefiting from the new social housing program, plans are in place to give even more Jamaicans similar access. 15 units are currently under construction and are on track to be completed by July.
The program is designed to address people who are in need, people who can't get houses going the regular method, but it is also designed to bring hope to communities that are in need of such interventions.
So if we can make an impact on this kind of housing situation, then we would have started well down the road to address the issue of housing poverty.